My life is like a video game, trying hard to beat the stage, all while I am still collecting coins.
Hello people, my name is Webb Hall and welcome back to the Level 10 podcast. In this podcast, I like to cover my top 10 favorite games of all time, starting with number 10 to number 1, and now we're finally here at number 1. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the game and a couple of the key concepts as to why I like it. The number 1 favorite game on this list, in my opinion, is Celeste. And Celeste is a game that I played back when a year after it released, back in 2018. I played it on Nintendo Switch for the first time, and I couldn't really get into it. It was a little too hard for me. And then I came back around to it a year later. I bought it on my computer because it just disappeared off of my Switch, I guess. But I came back around to it, and I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm so glad that I did. So here's a little synopsis of the game itself. Celeste is I'd say platform puzzle type game. It was created by Extremely OK Games, which this is their debut game as well. It was released back in January 25th of 2018 for the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC, Mac, and Linux. The game follows a young woman named Madeline as she climbs the somewhat magical Celeste Mountain, facing trials and tribulations from both the mountain's natural obstacles and from within herself. This is very apparent throughout the game, which not even through the story, but also through the gameplay. That is a key factor that I'm gonna keep mentioning, is that the story and the gameplay go hand in hand so well that there's no other game like it, at least that I've played, that does this concept so well. So, I'd say the game is not very long. It only takes about 8 to 10 hours to complete the main story, and it's a platformer game that also has, I'd say, puzzle elements. They don't really delve too deep into the puzzle aspect, other than the fact that there's a couple of stages that have unique gimmicks or just different layouts of levels that you kind of have to understand and then go off of from there. But the main point I'm trying to make with this is that the gameplay itself is probably one of the best feeling games you could ever play. The main gimmick of the game is that you can dash midair into any of the directions, and it's a very simple yet effective way of making the game a lot more interesting and intricate with the way that you can play it. And I say intricate because it's required in most stages that you have to dash. It's not like you can just run around and jump, and you can climb on walls and do all this stuff. But the main point is that the dash has so much like freedom in the air as well as on the ground, which I'll talk about later, that it just lets the player just completely do what they want, and it's actually a really fun and awesome mechanic. So I'd say throughout the game, it kind of teaches you over time, like the dashes and the overall gameplay mechanics of just normal platformers. But it also helps you understand that like you will fail over and over. You will die. You will fall into a pit of spikes or get chomped up by there's like a ghost guy who eats you sometimes. It's really funny, but I think that the main process of Celeste is failing and then getting back up and trying again. And this is very reflective in the story of the game, where Madeline, at a certain point, wakes up in this dream-like world, and she has to kind of navigate herself through this castle that she stumbles into. And there's a mirror in the castle, and she comes across it, and her reflection is not the same as herself. It's a little bit of it's a purple, evil kind of looking version of herself, and that carries throughout the game. It's symbolism for just the side of herself that she doesn't want to see. And I think that that's a very, I mean, the like I'm you but evil trope has been done before, obviously, but I think that they really nailed it with this one, especially with the like mentality, I guess you could say. So a main point throughout the game is that Madeline is struggling with herself, her personal struggles of like self-doubt, depression, anxiety are really apparent throughout the story's offbeat chapters, or in between the chapters, where you can kind of catch up with the story, and there's little like blurbs of things that happen in between the acts to kind of tie them together. But I think that most of the story you don't really have to like relate to it, but it's easy to follow, if you know what I mean. It's like you can understand it without completely following it. It's not a very complicated story. But at the kind of end of the game, Madeline is confronting herself, basically her evil self, and she finally like catches her, and then you get a extra dash, so now you have 2 dashes instead of 1, and your hair turns pink. So that's kind of cool. But anyways, let me talk about some of my thoughts on the game. I feel like this game for me really showed like how you can get better at a video game, because over time you're just playing through the game, right? It's kind of hard. There's hard sections. There are things called these B-sides, which are basically the main levels, but just completely harder. They just like delve deep into the challenge and the puzzle aspects, and there's less what are they called? There's less stages in the stage, like specific rooms, you could say. Yeah, rooms. There's specific rooms and through these challenge stages that are tailored specifically for mechanics or just types of play styles that you would have to adapt to. And I think that this game really goes to show that if you want to get good at it, you just have to completely like delve deep into the controls of the game, because it is so refined and well like high tuned for complete mastery of it. And I feel like that goes so hand in hand with the story of you kind of like at the beginning of the game you're like, oh, you're not very good, or maybe you haven't played like a platformer game before, but over time you gain more confidence in yourself, and you can see that reflected in Madeline as well. So it's like, oh, it's kind of like assuring you that you're actually getting better at the game. And the challenge kind of comes in the fact that like it's not only hard, but it's kind of aggravating too. It's kind of like a rage game that you don't really like want to get mad at, but it kind of happens. It just kind of happens. But I've 100% completed the game, and there was a DLC pack. Well, yeah, there was a DLC pack called the Farewell pack, and they added like a couple more rooms in a single chapter that kind of encapsulated like the ending of the story. Because at the beginning there was this grandma who kind of like told you like, oh, you can't climb the freaking mountain, and then towards like the end of the story she's a reoccurring character who is reassuring and helps Madeline kind of cope with her emotions. And then at the very end of the base game, you have a little party with your friends and with your confronted self, and it's really nice. Another part of the game that I think is underappreciated is the fact that there is a collectible system, but it's only one collectible, and those are strawberries. Strawberries are hidden throughout the levels, and they can be as easy as in plain sight, you just have to go up and get them. Or they can be challenging, they can have wings, and if you dash, they'll fly away. Or you have to collect multiple pieces of a puzzle and then form it back into a strawberry. I think that this system might honestly be one of the best I've seen as well, because it's like it keeps your mind focused on just one collectible. There's not like multiple different, I don't know, like requirements for you to get these different ones. Instead, it's just one, and you just get them by running into them and obtaining them. It was really fun to 100% complete, at least for me, because I feel like half of the strawberries that you can get are just like ones that are just out in the open, and then you're like, oh yeah, I'm halfway there, I might as well get all the rest. So it kind of like drives you to do it. But here's some feedback that the game got on release. From IGN, the game's first reviewer gave the game a 10 out of 10. Polygon rated Celeste a 8 out of 10, and the current standing on Metacritic is average about a 91% across all platforms, with an average user score of 7.3 out of 10. So, I mean, IGN gave it a 10 out of 10, it's gotta be a 10 out of 10. But it was also nominated for Game of the Year, the year it came out, 2018, next to God of War, which won, Spider-Man, and Red Dead Redemption 2, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Monster Hunter World. Most notably though, the game has been received as kind of a love letter to speedrunners, and it commonly is shown at a speedrunning convention named GDQ, and technically there's two GDQs, and it stands for Games Done Quick. There's SGDQ, which is Summer Games Done Quick, and then it might just be normal GDQ, because one is done in the summer and then the other I think might be in the fall. But yeah, it's been very prevalent in the speedrunning community due to its unique mechanics and its movement-based like platforming. So basically in the game, they encourage this, is that if you dash downwards towards the ground and then you jump at the same time, you can do something called a wave dash, which basically gives you a ton of like momentum forward, like propelling you forward. And speedrunners have came up with crazy strategies to kind of like finesse their way through levels, and it's really interesting to watch. I recommend it. Anyways, a big part of the game that is kind of like on the surface level, if you play the game and you like understand the story, you're like, oh okay, she's just like, it's just dealing with overcoming, like just getting to the top of the mountain. But it really has these undertones of depression and anxiety that are, I mean, let's just say they're not just metaphors, they actually happen to Madeline throughout the story. Like there is a point where she is on a train, like I don't know what they're called, a gondola maybe, with her friend that she meets through the story. His name is Theo, and she gets very anxious and nervous at the same like time of them getting on the gondola, and she just has like a complete breakdown, and you have to do this like mini game where you balance a feather, and it kind of like shows her like trying to calm down. But then eventually the bad reflection of Madeline comes out and is like, you can't do this, you just can't do this, you should stop now while you're ahead. And that just kind of spirals into the next chapter, which is her confronting her evil self into trying to understand herself better, and giving her more determination to climb the mountain. A quick little trivia fact is that one of the creators of the game, Noel Berry, stated that the name of the setting was chosen when he googled British Columbian mountains, and it was the Mount Celeste, obviously, that he liked the name of the most, and he didn't even know anything about it at the time. He hasn't been to British Columbia, I don't think, since, so he just kind of chose it out of just curiosity. There's also I failed to mention there are things called the seasides, which are like the toughest of tough. There's only 3 screens per seaside, which is just like 3 like rooms basically, and they are like, they range from super intense gameplay, doing like fast inputs and trying to get to the end of the stage as fast as possible, to actual puzzle sections where you have to think about and solve whatever is required of you, which I think is very cool too. It's a good game if you want to just like chill and I mean, not really just play, because if anything the game has so much more. Once you already delve deep into it and you're like, okay, this game's actually pretty good, there's more to do. After the main story is done, there is more to do, and they added even more with the DLC, which is amazing. I just and it was free DLC as well. Anyways, I'll skip ahead to the score that I personally am going to give it, which is a 10 out of 10. I think this is a perfect game. I think anybody should try this game at least. It's very, like I said, it's like Mario. I think Mario, or platformers in general, are very easy for newcomers to play. Like, that's what I grew up playing. That's what I guess most people grew up playing. I mean, Mario's pretty popular. But all in all, Celeste is a very good game, very good story, very good graphics, pixel-based graphics. I think that this game will go down in history as one of the best games ever made. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in to the Level 10 podcast. This is going to be the last episode because this is the last game. So yeah, I'll catch you guys later. See ya.